Glory to Ukraine. Welcome at the Military Media Center, the only information platform of the Security and Defense Forces of Ukraine. We are about to start our briefing on the situation on the front line of the Russian-Ukrainian war. Today, you're going to be briefed by Deputy Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Hanna Maliar, Deputy Head of the Main Operations Directorate of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov, Acting Director of the Implementation Planning Department of the National Guard of Ukraine, Colonel Mykola Urshalovych, Head of the Organizational and Analytical Support of the National Police, Third Rank Police General Oleksii Serhieiev, as well as Head of the Information and Analytical Department of the Research Center, Colonel Oleksandr Zaruba. Please welcome Hanna Maliar. Good morning, everyone. We are starting our traditional weekly briefing of all security and defense forces. We stay united on all front lines, including the informational front line. Today we have 323 days of defense of Ukraine against Russian invaders. The struggle of Ukrainian people against Russian aggression goes on for 46 weeks and more than 7,000 hours. Our defenders continue to hold their ranks on the difficult spots of the front lines, including the fight for Donbass. The fierce fighting are going on in Soledar direction. Despite the difficult situation, Ukrainian warriors fighting back. The enemy is trying to breach our defenses and seize the city of Soledar. However, it suffers losses. The approaches to the city are shelled with dead bodies of Russian forces. Our defenders are fighting back, and we say glory to all warriors who fight for Ukraine, both for male and female defenders. Today you will be briefed in more detail by the representative of the General Staff. Minus 700, minus 594. I think you know what I'm talking about. This statistic data we have every morning, and everyone can see these statistics. You can get the information about the dead and killed Russian invaders from the General Staff statement every morning. We hold the rank, and I think we have to remember what price we pay for this brutal, unprovoked and unleashed by Russia war. And we have to not only remember, but also be grateful to men and women who stay day and night at our defense of Ukraine and its sovereignty. We have to take care and do not express the will to not defend Ukraine. We cannot be alone and stay aside from saving and protecting one's lives. The Russian Armed Forces Command enhances its task force on the territory of Ukraine. It tries to redeploy mobilized personnel from the Belarusian ranges to Russia, as well as to the operation area. The high intensity of actions are in Bakhmut, Soledar, and Avdiivka directions. As of January 10, there are approximately 280 groups as part of Russian occupation forces. As for the previous weeks, we saw 250. units. The Kremlin actively uses its manpower. They are trying to achieve success on the battlefield. The high intensity of the hostilities are in the Donbass. The enemy continues to build up joint task force on the territory of Ukraine. We can see that the enemy is trying to regain strategic initiative by doing this. At the same time, the occupants still continue to loot and terrorize peaceful population on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. The occupation forces continue to evict locals from living areas and residential quarters, and after that they allocate and accommodate their personnel in those buildings. At the same time, they try to lay mines at the approaches to these buildings. At the same time, Russian administrations intensify the integration of temporarily occupied territories to the Russian constitution and legislation. For example, they started to issue passport and driving licenses as well as license plates with the number of the occupied territories. In case of violation of such rules and measures, local populations can be sent to prison. At the same time, Russian administrations expedited the time for issuance of passports from 30 days to 10 days. Every day and every week we also inform you about the support of the armed forces of Ukraine. I can definitely say that we had this new year with the same stable level of supply support for the armed forces of Ukraine, including weapons, clothing, POL, etc. From December 29 to January 11 this year, that is why since the last briefing, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine sent more than 46,000 of armor vests, more than 50,000 of helmets, more than 45,000 of winter footwear, almost 200,000 of winter jackets, more than almost 100,000 of battle dress uniforms, more than 22,000 of fleece jackets, and almost 94,000 of demi-season and winter underwear, including other equipment. It has been sent for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. In general, as I mentioned last time, the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine met the needs of the armed forces in full. As for now, we also increase our reserves. We can say that armor vests reserve is almost 240,000 of armor vests, and as you know, during the previous briefing we had 200,000, now 240,000. As for now, we also have the reserve of helmets, 150,000. We also increased the supply of winter and summer uniforms. Now, as for the payments, we keep tracking of this and is going through the same process. And in January this year, the assignment process is about for 70 billion hryvnia. It would allow us to ensure the proper payment of money allowances to our servicemen. Every week we also give you the information about our legal victories. By saying this, I mean our struggle with the enterprises and companies who provide low-quality ammunition, clothing, etc. And now we also have judicial processes in order to return the illegally seized equipment, land, etc. from the armed forces of Ukraine. As for the previous week and during this week, there have been money seizures for almost up to 10 million hryvnia for the improper provision of services. For example, the Northern Appeal Court of the city of Vinnytsia adopted a decision in favor of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine for up to 1.2 million hryvnia. It concerned the improper building and construction of barracks for the armed forces of Ukraine. And now we are bringing these funds, this money back. The Central Appeal Court also approved a decision of the Dnipro Court to seize the fine of 3.9 to 4.7 million hryvnia for illegal and improper provision of services for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. The Khmelnytsky Appeal Court also approved decision in favor of the armed forces and the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine to bring the land with the area of 2 hectares for the armed forces of Ukraine. We see many such cases, and the land I'm talking about is the land used to be for the military city, and during the previous administration of the region it was illegally seized. And we see many of such cases, and now we are bringing these lands back for the needs of the armed forces of Ukraine. Thank you for your attention. We are grateful to the Deputy Minister of Defense, Hanna Maliar. And now please welcome the representative of the General Staff of the Armed Forces of Ukraine, Brigadier General Oleksii Hromov. Please welcome. Good morning, everyone. The main purpose of the enemy is continue to seize the whole territory of Ukraine and destroy its statehood. The enemy adopted a decision to wage a war on attrition. In general, the Putin's regime tries to gain time. They try to deplete and exhaust Ukrainian economy and destroy the defense forces of Ukraine. It is expected that during the recent days, the enemy will try to advance to the borders of the Donetsk region, and then will also intensify its actions to seize the left bank region of the Zaporizhia Oblast. To destroy the critical infrastructure, the Kremlin will still try to engage missile and aviation attacks on the deep of our territory. The intensity of such attacks will depend on the capabilities of Russian military industrial complex to meet their needs of high precision and low range as well as medium range missiles. The Iranian component will also affect this capability. To implement its expansion plans, then the Russian command will try to perform large-scale measures to reform the armed forces, namely to increase its number to 1.5 million personnel and form up at least 20 new divisions. The stated plans will take a lot of time. At the same time, the high losses in manpower and material the effect of international sanctions can have some doubts in us that these measures of the enemy will be completed in the precise time. At the same time, I want to say that this year, on the territory of the Belarus, it is planned to conduct joint training, the Shield of Union 2023. At the same time, instead of the Center 2023, it is planned to perform maneuvers, Zapad 2023. In both cases, the Russian Joint Task Force will be deployed on the territory of this country. Given this information, during this year, there is a potential threat of advance of Russian forces from the territory of Belarus. As for now, we see no signs of formation of attack unit on the territory of the Republic of Belarus. The enemy intensified railroad transports along the state border of Ukraine. We also see the redeployment and relocation of troops on the territory of Belarus. At the same time, we also see the deployment of troops from the Russian territory to the territory of Belarus. It's also worth mentioning that on the territory of Belarus, until April the 1st, there is still the limitation to forbid the flight of civilian aircraft, including UAVs, on the southern part of this country, namely in the areas bordering Ukraine. The enemy is also trying to build up aviation group of forces on the territory of Belarus. Thus, the enemy deployed at least 10 Mi-8/24 helicopters to the airfield Mykola. We also expect the redeployment of tactical aviation on the airfield of the Belarus. We do not rule out the possibility to attack and engage aviation and missile attacks. The enemy did not give up its attempts to engage border areas of Ukraine. Thus, during the week, starting from January 5th, the Russian occupation forces performed almost 30 artillery and mortar shells of the bordering areas. The operational situation in the area of operation remains difficult. The highest intensity of the enemy is seen on the east of our country. And during the week, we had seen 355 combat encounters. Supported by artillery and aviation, the enemy will try to split up and envelop, encircle, as well as destroy our forces, and then advance to the borders of the Donetsk region. The enemy performs active measures in Bakhmut direction, including in Soledar, Paraskovyiivka, Bakhmut, Klishchiivka. The enemy is also trying to perform offensive, however not successful actions in Avdiivka direction and improve its situation in Kupiansk and Novopavlivsk direction. In the Man direction, the enemy performs active defense. In the Orikhiv direction, the enemy engaged 8 aviation and 8 aviation missiles in the vicinity of 6 settlements. From January 5th, we engaged 298 times against the enemy positions. Aviation and air defense forces destroyed 21 aerial targets. The situation on the front line is still tense, and only the bravery and attachment to its work of Ukrainian forces will guarantee our victory. It's tough, it's difficult for us, but we will win. Thank you. Thank you, General Hromov. And now, please welcome representative of the National Guard of Ukraine, Colonel Mykola Urshalovych. Good morning, everyone. I sincerely welcome those who are watching us online and who are present here. The National Guard of Ukraine continue to perform their tasks as part of defense forces. They participate in defensive actions in the vicinity of Slobozhansk, Donetsk, and Tavrisk areas. They defend the following cities in the area of responsibility. They perform stabilization measures in the vicinity of Volyn, Polissya, Siversk, Bessarabsk, Slobozhansk, and Pivdенно-Buzhsky areas. Engage in territorial defense in the western operational area and perform measures of the legal regime, namely the martial law, defined by the National Guard. The main efforts of our units were concentrated in deterring the enemy in Kupiansk, Slovyansk, Siversk, Bakhmut, Avdiivka, and Novopavlivsk direction. The most fearful battles and bloody battles are in the vicinity of Soledar and Bakhmut. The enemy spares no efforts and spares no its forces to send the corpses to the battlefield against our forces. However, thanks to skillful action, command and control, and heroism of our forces, National Guard units deter the enemy and defend its positions. Thus, yesterday, on January 11th, the National Guard Brigade, named after Petro Bolbochan, identified and destroyed the personnel of the enemy, namely 40 personnel. The artillery fire has been adjusted by the UAVs. In the vicinity of Kurdyumivka and Ozeryanivka, the servicemen of the Operational Response Brigade, named after Serhieiev Mikhalchuk, engaged the enemy. We had 39 KIA, 60 wounded, and at least 5 82mm mortars have been destroyed. The special purpose units concentrate their efforts to perform attack and assault, counter-sabotage, and other air reconnaissance measures to engage the enemy. In the vicinity of Bakhmut, the servicemen of one of the special purpose unit destroyed up to 25 enemy personnel. And in the vicinity of Avdiivka and Krasnohorivka, our special forces destroyed one tank, 4 infantry fighting vehicles, and one tank was damaged. The personnel of the Special Purpose Brigade, named after Bogdan Zavada, repelled the assault of the enemy. Area Reconnaissance Group of the National Guard Brigade destroyed the enemy personnel, equipment, material, weapons, and other positions in different parts of the front line, including namely in the Donetsk region. In general, the reconnaissance personnel of the National Guard detected 318 targets. Part of them has been destroyed. National Guard artillery performed fire support in Liman, Bakhmut, and Zaporizhzhia direction. In general, artillery units performed 400 combat tasks. At the same time, I want to say that the efficiency of our artillery will increase lately. We started to use artillery system of NATO countries, and they proved their effectiveness in Soledar and Bakhmut. on the deoccupied territories in order to free and liberate personnel from Russian peace and Russian world measures. We continue to perform stabilization actions and measures. It provides for detection and seizure of criminals, demining, and provision of humanitarian assistance. Thus, on January 5th, the Mykola regiment of the National Guard seized 5 people. The engineer group of this regiment also seized lots of munitions of different caliber. And the enemy left these munitions in the vicinity when they retreat from the Kiselivka, Klapaya, Krutый Yar areas in the Kherson region. The engineer units of the National Guard Brigade, named after Petro Kalnishevsky, continued to perform their operation with the provision of assistance to Ukrenergo in order to repair power lines in Mykolaiv region. The National Guard also provided humanitarian assistance for civilian population in Kherson and Mykolaiv regions. Humanitarian cargo has been provided by charity organization of the Netherlands. During the territorial defense, the main efforts of our units have been aimed at maintaining the martial law, participation of counter-sabotage activities, protection and defense of more than 300 state installations, as well as protection and security of 30 national authority installations, as well as 100 critical infrastructure installations. The guarantee of a successful achievement of tasks by our forces is the integration, coordination, and the proper command and control in difficult situations. These issues have been mastered from January 9 to 11 during joint tasks and exercises of the National Guard and other defense and security forces in around Ukraine. During the exercises, our personnel showed the high level of training and readiness. As a result of the POW exchange, we managed to return 12 National Guards. Now they undergo special treatment. Ukraine is not Russia, and we prove that we are not one people. And we also stated that during this briefing that we do not leave ourselves and our people behind. However, we saw many cases when Russian forces still alive trying to cover their bodies with dead ones. At the end of my briefing, I want to give you the example of heroism of our National Guards. And it was like on the local level. On January 5th, the Senior Sergeant Babenko of the Special Purpose Brigade was wounded. Private First Class Haidukov opened fire and forced the enemy to lower the intensity of its shelling. During the medevac of his comrade, Haidukov, also was injured. However, despite the casualties and wounds, Haidukov did not give up and evacuated his comrade and himself. And I can say lots of such cases on the battlefield, and that is why they will not win. National Guard, as part of the defense and security forces, do their best every day for their resilience and heroism during the repulse of armed aggression. The Minister of Internal Affairs, Denis Monastyrsky, bestowed with decorations 42 National Guards. Glory to Ukraine, and thank you for your attention. Thank you, Colonel Urshalovych, for your information concerning the National Guard. And now, please welcome the representative of the National Police, third rank General Oleksii Serhieiev. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. The year 2022 came to an end. It was obviously the most difficult year for Ukraine. At the same time, it was the year of recognition of Ukrainian heroism and stability against armed aggression. The security and defense forces do their best to make the day of our victory closer. Namely, National Police effectively documents war crimes committed by Russian servicemen and their assets. During the last 2 weeks, we documented 4,000 of military and war crimes, or in general, 300 violations. In general, we have documented almost 59,000 of crimes. 46,200 was related to violation of war and customs of war, and 9.2 is the encroachment upon the territorial integrity and inviolability of Ukraine. The National Police pays its attention to document the facts of collaboration activity. During the last 2 weeks, the National Police documented 63 criminal violations, and their general number increased to 2,300. 60% of such proceedings commenced by the National Police concerning the collaboration activity concerns the Article 3 to 8 of the Criminal Code of Ukraine. It relates the heavy and severely heavy crimes. I want to remind you that if the collaboration activities led to heavy consequences or death of people, this is violated by imprisonment for 15 or endless time in prison. The collaboration activities also relate to trying to impose the educational standards of the aggressor state, transfer the material resources to illegal armed or paramilitary units, holding civilian or public offices in the local authorities, concerning and waging improper informational activities, collaborating with the enemy. I want to give you an example. When the couple from Izum region in the vicinity of Kharkiv Oblast spreaded agitation and propaganda materials and openly supported Russian. Yesterday, in the vicinity of Donetsk region, we opened the criminal proceeding concerning the citizen of Krasnohorivka, who held office of first rector of Mariupol State University. During the previous briefings, I also informed you about our results of documenting the torture chambers and illegal holding places of Ukrainians by Russian forces. As for now, the number of such chambers increased to 49, 25 of them in Kharkiv region, 15 in Kherson, 3 in Kyiv, and 2 in Mykola and Sumy, as well as 1 in Donetsk and Chernihiv regions. At the same time, the police work was not limited to documenting such places, but also is aimed to identify and hold accountable people who are responsible for this. In general, the police officers identified 17 people who were involved in torturing and mutilating Ukrainians. Some of them were representative or local criminal groups and mafia in the Donetsk region. They also related to former law enforcement bodies. Our police officers also gathered the evidence and sent suspicions to these people concerning the crimes for violation of laws and customs of Ukraine. The rest, 12 people, will be also sent to court as well. The pre-court investigation is performed by the supported by the Office of the General Prosecutors of Ukraine. Alongside the deterrence of armed aggression, the National Police performs measures to stabilize the criminal situation in Ukraine and prevent its escalation. Around Ukraine, we have more than 6,000 police duties and almost 160 102 line operators, as well as more than 100 controllers around Ukraine. During the previous year, operators of the 102 hotline accept 8 million of calls of our citizens. We can see and state the decrease of crimes committed by people concerning the encroachment upon life of citizens. For example, the number of thefts decreased by 39%, frauds decreased by 2.2%, rapes by 39%, and others. We also performed additional measures to enhance the efficiency of counter-drug activities. As a result of the previous year, we documented 17% more crimes of this category. We worked non-stop to counter organized criminal activity and all its elements. In 2022, we opened 111 criminal proceedings concerning organized criminal groups, and we documented 62 criminal organizations. Our work concerning cyber crimes was non-stop as well. During the previous year, the National Police seized and opened proceedings concerning 15,000 of crimes concerning cyber activities. At the same time, the large-scale armed aggression of the Russian Federation against Ukraine led to massive violation of customs and laws of war on the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine. As a result, the number of such crimes increased by 2.7%. And at the same time, in 2022, the number of illegal weapons handling increased by 13%. Now, as for the territory of Ukraine, we can state the decrease of crimes concerning forcible killings. We can also take account into fraud, which has increased by 1/3 during the previous year. We also received many improper and inadequate messages and cases for fake mining. During the previous week, we saw the mining of more than 68,000 of installations, including 50,000 of training institutions, 7,600 of malls. The National Police will stay at the guarantee and at stake for the protection of rights and liberties of Ukrainians. Please believe in the National Police. Glory to Ukraine. Thank you, General, for your information. And now please welcome representative of the Trophy and Advanced Weapons and Equipment Research Center, Colonel Oleksandr Zaruba. Glory to Ukraine. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in its war against Ukraine, the Russian Federation uses its personnel as cannon fodder. These tactics hasn't changed since the Second and the First World Wars. Being unable to achieve its results, even with the missile and aviation attacks against critical infrastructure, the terrorist state sends waves of corpses and dead bodies of mobilized personnel to our positions. As a result of coordinated actions of all branches and services led by the Commander-in-Chief Valery Zaluzhny, the enemy casualties exceeded 112,000 personnel. What was the purpose of such high death rate, except for success of Ukrainian actions, low level of training and rusty weapons of Russian tactics? Our center can state several reasons. Firstly, the Russian Federation does not have enough high-tech weapons, equipment, gear and ammunition for their servicemen. In most cases, the gear and equipment of a Russian soldier is copycat from foreign countries, and it also has foreign components. For example, Strelets, reconnaissance, command and control, and communication system has foreign-made components. The portable commander laptop is a usual tablet made by Leica company. Now this laptop has a new label, Algiz, and the only thing they do in Russia is they change the icon and name of the computer. The cable and wire production for these laptops and computers of the Fisher Connectors company is released on the Russian joint Intrasoft stock company in St. Petersburg. Azart radio has more than 90% of foreign components, and it also has a Russian outer panel. That's it. Secondly, we can state the low quality of components and of weapons, equipment, clothing, etc. And we can also state the corruption element embedded on almost every stage of production of such equipment. For example, to buy the Peronit navigators, they allocated $9,000, and the one component of the system cost only $150. Despite the claims of the Russian Ministry of Defense concerning the procurement and supply of 300,000 Ratnik combat gear, the soldiers are not equipped with it, and they have to buy it for themselves. The State Duma deputy, General Hromov, stated about the loss of 1.5 million of uniform sets, and I think it existed only in document. The money allocated for this are in the pockets of Russian officials and high-ranking generals. We also have, and you can see the captured SH-40 helmets. They are covered with Russian covers, and they just copycat the Kevlar helmets. And even the only armor helmet they have, 6B-47, has an old-fashioned and obsolete harness system, and it also injures the wearer when the bullet hits it. The quality of such weapons and clothing gear is very low. We can also state the fact that this clothing is highly flammable and irresistible to flammable materials. That is why you can see the Russian servicemen very greasy in the interviews. Now, as for the armor plates they use in armor vests, we can state the fact that they are always changed and substituted. The quality of such clothing, helmets, vests, etc. is in very high contrast with their claims about technological superiority and how they call it that their clothing has no analog in the world. Thirdly, the lack of such clothing and good equipment is changed and substituted by vodka when they add it to their ratio. Ideological and psychological manipulations. As you can see, they also add Krasnaya Zvezda newspaper, tea, labeled with their Democratic Party and others. The trophy and captured examples you can see here. Under the propaganda influence, Russians always forget about their own security. Thus, when Russians advanced on Kiev and Kharkiv, they were convinced that Ukrainians will not resist, and they were equipped with stun grenades and equipment used only for riot control. The genocide of Russians concerning Ukrainian people is well known around the world. However, with such attitude towards their own personnel, Russia will destroy and devastate their own people, especially national minorities from poor countries. As a result, we can say that we see lots of facts of looting among their servicemen. And even the Russian propagandists say and recognize that Ukrainian equipment, gear, clothing, etc. is way better of quality than those of Russians. That is why Russians say that it's a luck for them, and they are lucky when they are able to seize and capture something of Ukrainian equipment, including IFACs, civilian items, and even socks. The comparison of the quality of such equipment, my facts I provided for you, can say that Ukrainian equipment has higher advantage and superiority. And it concerns not only the superiority of quality, but also the value we have towards our lives. And you can see that on the slide. Thank you. Thank you, Colonel Zaruba, for your information. And after the briefing, you will be able to see the equipment, gear, and clothing of Russian invaders. And now I welcome our guests to the briefing, to the podium. And if you have any questions, please take the mic and say it. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Army Inform. I had a question to Brigadier General. How do you assess the high-level rotations of positions in the high-ranking generals of the Russian Federation, and how will it affect the conduct of war against Ukraine? Thank you for your information. During the previous month of the war, we are always tracking that high-ranking officials are being shifted and changed in the Russian Federation. If everything was okay, there won't be such shifts and changes. But the recent personnel changes state the fact that the command and control system and integration are not good enough for them. And we'll see how it will work later for us. Thank you. I have a question to Brigadier General Hromov. How the integration of troops and forces is being conducted when they have different weapons and equipment around Ukraine. So how can you describe the process of integration of troops? The training of troops is performed at the training institutions and centers, as well as including the rehabilitation regions. Such training of servicemen at how to handle and operate Western weapons and equipment is performed by their countries at their facilities. And the training of high level and high quality and high-tech equipment is performed on the basis of such countries, so that in these countries. As for the integration, we have the training starting from the lowest level, of every soldier, of the squad, platoon, and higher. And we have different timelines for the training of each soldier individually, a squad, a platoon, etc. And that is why after that, every soldier knows how to act and how to use its weapons and equipment in the battlefield after that. Thank you. Do we have other questions? Armia Informa. I had a question to Ms. Maliar. Can you explain and elaborate on the rehabilitation programs and processes for servicemen who have been returned and exchanged? Yes, thank you for information and for the question. Indeed, we processed the issues of Kherson, Mykola, and Odessa civilian administrations, that is about southern region. The work we do, how to exchange and bring our servicemen back, is of two stages. The first is the negotiation, and the second is the actual return process itself. The coordination headquarters under the main intelligence directorate is for the first time since 2013 unites and involves other institutions around Ukraine to facilitate this process. And since February 24 up to now, Ukraine does not violate and adheres to all the norms how to retain POW, and we are always open to our exchange process. Our lists are open. We do not have anything hid in the pockets. We are always open for these processes. The isolation and confinement is also performed according to international norms. And the coordination headquarters under main intelligence directorate, this is Spaska Street 37, is opening its subsidiary and other institutions around Ukraine so that prisoners exchanged can contact the local centers and have their visits with their families. And yesterday we opened such centers in the Mykola region with the mayor of the city and heads of military and civilian administrations. And at that place, at this center, the liberated returned serviceman can get and receive every services he or she needs. For example, as for now, in Mykola region, those who are in prison, in captivity, our people are working with their families and even congratulate their children, for example, on their birthdays. And, for example, yesterday we had several meetings of those who have been returned, who came back. And why do we do this? It's very important for us to have their feedback, their information, what else we can do to treat them better. Starting from the very meeting moment, for example, we have such a discussion question. When the serviceman crossed the border, is it important for his relatives to meet him or not? For example, to create a special ambience for him. So does it worth it or not? And it's very interesting for me to say that every serviceman, that it's not worth it. They don't want to see and to have their relatives at the very moment of return. So like balloons and other events are performed. They said no, because we had private talks and discussions to talk about this, to discuss it, and they said that the state, the mental state they have when they come back, does not provide for any forces and for any strength to how to react when they see their relatives. And that is why they said no. We also asked, and we did it every time, for the medical support, medical supply. What's better and what's not? How do they feel? How are they feeling after that? And do they come back to the armed forces or in other units? or are they not prepared for coming back? But I want to say definitely that the captivity does not break them, and they always come back and return to the armed forces of Ukraine. And we also had a discussion, a meeting with relatives of POW who are in captivity. And this is what we do every time on a daily basis. And we provide this communication, provide the feedback, because people are in difficult conditions when they wait for their relatives for a long time. And yesterday we spreaded the information about such centers around Ukraine. And I think that such centers will be created around Ukraine soon. Good morning, everyone. Valeria Pashko, Espresso. I have a question about Leopard tanks. Is it an agreed agreement? And how will they change the situation on the battlefield? And how our servicemen will be undergoing training? And the second question is about Soledar. Can you name the degree of how much our forces control the city? Concerning the Leopard tanks, we will be grateful for such reinforcement, because this is the first high level of and great assistance with tanks. And every weapons and equipment entering the territory of Ukraine, and every weapons and equipment that we have the trained personnel for is sent to the areas of hostilities. But as for now, these tanks are not part of the armed forces of Ukraine. And now, as for the city of Soledar, we have fierceful fightings, and I think it's not deliberate and necessary to give you the percentage and the extent of how much the city is controlled by our forces. There are fightings there. That's all I can say. Thank you. Second question. Good morning, everyone. I had a question to Colonel Mykola Urshalovych. I can see that you wear a new uniform, and is it the update for just everyone or for the separate units of the National Guard? Thank you that you noticed my new uniform, but I want to say that the National Guard of Ukraine improves not only and updates not only weapons we use in fight. I mentioned today artillery systems, but we also take into account the tactics, experience of our units, and we update and improve the structure of these units, do everything best to improve, for improvement. And it also concerns we took into account the shortfalls of the previous uniform the National Guard wear, but now we developed the new style of uniform, and we are planning to transfer every serviceman for this uniform in this year. And as for me, I am sure that it will be the uniform of victory, and this uniform will be worn by our servicemen, and we will have a parade in the city of Sevastopol on our Victory Day. Thank you. Our briefing comes to an end. We fight till the end, and the Russian Federation will lose. Glory to Ukrainian heroes, and see you during next briefings.